that is a neural stimuli, a nerve stimulus. We can have a hormonal stimulus, a stimulus from a hormone. Go figure, right? Because what is it that my hypothalamus can secrete? Hormones. So the way that the hypothalamus is going to be able to do anything with the pituitary gland, anterior, posterior, it is going to be talking to it, giving the stimulus by way of a hormone. Does that make sense?
So what's like an example? Can you tell us?
Okay, so let's go to that good old thyroid gland. My hypothalamus, okay? And you have to think back to a previous chapter where it showed all these different nuclei in the hypothalamus. Nuclei. Dense areas of what? Nerve cell bodies. So that levels of these chemicals in the blood are getting detected. Does that make sense? So let's say that our thyroid hormone, which is all over our body, okay, levels are low. Now, if I've got my little infundibulum coming down to my pituitary gland, and I'm drawing my tracks, okay, because if I have my anterior and my posterior, remember I've got the portal systems. So I've got a portal system going to the posterior and a portal going to the anterior. Now, if my levels are low, which hormone do you think is going to have to be activated up here in my hypothalamus? Now take a peek. Take a peek back to, I think, slide 6. And do you see the little purple box and the pink box? I can't really read it. Which hormone do you think the hypothalamus needs to put out? So that didn't sound right. Which hormone needs to come from the hypothalamus if I'm dealing with a low thyroid hormone in the blood?
Releasing.
I need my releasing. So TRH, which is a hormone, where is it going to go?
Anterior.
It's going to go to my anterior pituitary and act on the cells that can produce what? So take a peek at your anterior pituitary. Look at 6. Oh, you can't?
It's
Oh,
good.
man, yours is even lower than mine. Oh. Okay. Is that any better?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay. So, if TRH is from my hypothalamus, the only place it can go is to my pituitary. So now we have determined that it's going to go to my anterior pituitary, act on cells that can release what?
The thyroid stimulating.
My TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, which are going to leave and make their way to the bloodstream. And then where is the TSH going to go to?
Thyroid.
To my thyroid gland. And there, act on, you remember how we have the follicles, and in between are those parafollicular cells, blah, 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 blah?
Mhm.
Okay? So it'll come and act on the follicle area, the cells of the follicle area, and tell my thyroid gland to now release what?
Thyroid hormone.
My thyroid hormone. Some of it will be in the form of T3, some of it will be in the form of T4. Which one is more potent?
3.
3, because T4 has to be converted if needed. Once the levels go back up in the blood, we'll have receptors that will say, stop. Is that cool? I mean, that's pretty cool, you know? So, we can have control, which side am I on? 29? This would be how a hormone regulates a hormone. Because they're talking by way of the chemicals. Humoral. And I don't mean ha-ha. Okay? What does that mean? What is the term humor of the body? Humors of the body. What does that mean? Fluids. Way back in the olden days. Okay? Yes, when I was young. No, I'm joking. Okay, so way back, we're talking centuries. All right? And before a lot of things in the body got identified. And of course, you know, they knew blood because, you know, stuff would be seen. They knew urine. They knew these fluids of the body, okay? And so the term for them were humors, all right, and not ha-ha funny. So we have kept that term. So whenever you hear something being referred to as humoral, they're referring mostly to the fluids of the body, i.e., especially blood. Okay? So, because hormones have to travel in the blood, their levels are monitored. And they cause something to happen with either production or not. So we have these different ways of helping that secretion or non-secretion in the body. Does that make sense? The example for the humors is, of course, insulin, because that one is so important, okay? When we eat, the goal is for the insulin to get released and help us utilize the sugar correctly. Now, I mentioned that we were either going to have the hormones be lipid-based or not. Now, if they have to travel in the blood, our planet as a whole is about 75% water. Our bodies as a whole are roughly 75% water. Our cells, each one, is roughly 75% water. I find that very interesting, by the way. Okay? So what do you think the blood is mostly?
Water.
Water. Wait a minute. Fats and water. Mix or no?
No.
How about something that's not a fat? What if it's water-based? Water, water. Water, water everywhere, but nary a drop to drink. It could possibly just, I don't know. So, have I now created a problem for transport? Possibly. Anything possible? So, here's what's going to happen. With hormones, they're either going to be considered water soluble, lipid soluble. Lipid soluble. If the cell that produces that hormone releases this product and it has to go into the bloodstream, which it will, all right? Here's the structure here, but now what do you see happening in the bloodstream?
Transport protein.
It has to attach to a transport protein. They're termed globulins, okay, because they look like little globes, all right? That transport protein will be specific to that particular fat-based chemical and allow it to move through the blood to target cells. All right? So, my fat-soluble hormones need to have a transport protein. Water-soluble, what do you notice? They don't. They do not need the transport protein. Now, looking at the bottom part of this picture, where I have my fat-soluble versus water-soluble, they meet their target cell. What do you notice about movement of this hormone across the plasma membrane? Don't be afraid, speak up. Tell me.
It doesn't look like a water one does. It's like right at the membrane.
Okay. Now, here's what has to happen. Let's look at that fat soluble, okay? It got to move through the plasma membrane. Does everybody see that? But why? what is the structure of the plasma membrane